Here I am, straight into the group as promised from my earlier post today. Now, happy, I'll get my words out, happy Lesbian Visibility Week. It's going to be a good week. I've got lots planned for you and lots that you're going to be able to watch, listen to and take away to help you on your journey to being more authentic, being more visible and more importantly, being more confident in who you are and how you show up. So I thought, what better way to kick this off by just getting my phone up and just straight into recording. Normally I'd get my fancy camera out, but I thought, you know what, today and the rest of the week is going to be about rawness, about realness. If I trip over my words, so what? If I get it wrong, so what? I'm not pausing. I'm just going to go straight through and you're going to see me warts and all, because that's essentially what I'm encouraging you to do. I'm encouraging you this week to be yourself and to get comfortable with all the parts of you that make you you, that make you unique, that make you who you are. And that's what we're going to be focusing on. So happy Lesbian Visibility Week. I hope that whatever you get up to, whatever you've got planned, that you have a really great time and that you can encourage other people, other women around you who are not as confident to join in whatever way that they feel they can. Now, I was sat at my desk actually, just finished my client sessions today, and I thought, what can I do? Where can I start you? Where can I orientate you with this journey? And I've got some notes here, so please excuse me. Like I say, I normally have this all in my head and pre-prepared what I'm going to say, but this is about authenticity. So if you see me looking down, I've not rehearsed this. I've just literally written this and pressed go. So what I've got is a really smart mnemonic that I want to share with you, aptly named the She mnemonic. So there's three parts to this. The first one is self-acceptance. The second part is hold your ground. And the third part for confidence in visibility is expression and environment, self-expression and environment. So these are the three key recipes that I think are going to really help you to have something to hold on to, something that you can carry around with you to be able to lean in and anchor yourself in those moments that feel a bit stressful, in those moments where you're still working out how you can show up, you're still feeling your way into the journey that you have with yourself. So I'm going to go through this with you. So let's kick off with the first one. Now, for those of you who work with me, you're going to smile to yourself when I say this, because you'll know that I really focus on having some structure, having internal repertoire. And the reason why I really encourage that is because when we're scared, when we're unsure, when we don't know what to say and we don't know what to do and we don't know how to behave, what we always do is default and we go straight back to the quickest and easiest way that we can get relief. And sometimes when we do that for long enough, what happens is that turns into a pattern, and then it turns into a coping mechanism, and then it turns into the very thing that you do without thinking, that keeps you trapped, that keeps you stuck in areas of your life. So when you want to step out and you want to be a bit more confident and you want to actually just be a bit more authentic, you know, the natural thing that you're going to want to default to is what you've always done. And it can be really hard to step out of ingrained patterns like that have kept you safe and have been very valuable strategies and tactics in the past. It's hard, isn't it, to then think, well, I want to change, I want to be more confident, but I don't know how to change that. I don't know where to begin. Well, by having 3 steps, by having these in your back pocket, by having a simple, repeatable way to show up, and a simple, repeatable way to think about showing up, it means that you can begin to practice. And I really think that having structure, having a handrail is the very key to undoing anxiety, because everything behavior-wise, thoughts, things that we do, things that we think, everything is patterned. And that's how the brain works. It works in shortcuts. It works in the easiest repeatable way to get you to do something that gives you the quickest amount of relief. Not happiness, the quickest amount of relief. And this is what we're looking to undo. Undo patterns of fear, undo unhealthy, unhelpful patterns of hiding, that are the very thing that you need to move past to get you moving forward in your life. So without further ado, let me talk to you about the first one. And so the first one is self-acceptance. And I think if you really want to show up and be visible, truly visible in your life, in your relationships, with your family, with your friends, all of that type of thing, you've got to start leaning into self-acceptance. Now, this is a really hard one because self-acceptance is, I think it's a journey. It's definitely a transition period. And I think there's lots of things about myself that I'm still working through. I don't think self-acceptance is easy. And I think people have this notion, don't they, that you have to like all of yourself to accept yourself. But I want to just reassure you that self-acceptance, the healthiest way to think about self-acceptance is accepting where you are right now, accepting that there are still parts of you that you don't accept yet. I know that there's some of you who are still married to men, still in those types of relationships, and still questioning, still querying what's going on, and toying with the idea of, how have I not known this? You know, can this be true? Can I accept that this is real? And I think when you make it difficult for yourself by pushing yourself into liking, into liking and accepting every aspect about yourself, then that's where you're going to come up against the rub. Think about self-acceptance as accepting where you are on the map, accepting where you are on your journey right now, accepting that there are things that you are still yet to work through. And I think that's a really important word when you pair it with self-acceptance, is the word yet, because you're not there yet. And there may be some things that you need to think about, things that you need to work through, things that you need to consider and make peace with. And a lot of self-acceptance is to do with the narrative that you're carrying around with you. We don't learn to reject ourselves on our own. The outside world, particularly for women in our community, it's the outside world that teaches us to self-reject. It's our parents and caregivers and the lessons that we have repeatedly throughout our lives, the stories and the ideas that we listen to, that we're exposed to, that we feel shame from. They are all the things that repeatedly teach us to disconnect and move away from parts of ourselves that we really need to stay with. And I think that's the key as well with self-acceptance, is learning not to abandon yourself. It's about learning what's uncomfortable, learning that what I have right now is not comfortable. I don't really like it, or I might not have an opinion about it, or I'm not letting myself think about it, and honouring that as the truth. Because a big part of what I teach my clients is to be able to hold discomfort, but not abandon themselves in the way that they learned to disconnect as children. You know, when you are a child and you grow up and you do something and you get told off, or there's a frown, or there's disapproval, kids don't automatically think that the parent is emotionally unintelligent for approaching them like that. Kids automatically think there must be something wrong with me, and they will adjust and they will completely alter how they're being to be able to re-establish connection. So essentially disconnecting from themselves to reconnect to the most important relationships that are going to keep them safe and healthy. And what happens is that becomes a coping mechanism, and what starts off as disconnection to get approval as a child then turns into people pleasing as an adult. And I think that directly feeds into self-acceptance, because I really want you to think about self-acceptance as staying with yourself even when it's hard, staying with yourself even when there's parts of you that you are struggling with. In the same way that you wouldn't abandon a frightened child in the street if they were scared and frightened and upset and angry with themselves. It's about connecting to that part of you, because there's a child in all of us that needs that warmth, that needs defrosting on the inside to be able to reconnect. And I think just learning to sit with the most uncomfortable parts of yourself and see them in all their rawness and become aware of how they make you feel, become aware of the narrative and the story that you're telling yourself about the parts that you don't accept. And it's not about understanding why don't I? It's not about trying to force yourself into acceptance, like I've said. It's about sitting in reality, accepting what is rather than what if. So I hope that helps. So self-acceptance. I'm just going to have a look to see if I put anything else down here. Yeah, that's right. And what I've noted down here is it's about building capacity to stay with yourself over comfort. That's the other thing, isn't it? A lot of women that I work with, they come and they see themselves as flawed, inadequate, not good enough, and all of the anxious patterns that follow on from that. But when you learn to build capacity, and I talk about this a lot on social media as well, when you learn to build capacity, you'll realize that it's not about comfort. Comfort is a byproduct of expanding your capacity to be able to stay with yourself. So self-abandonment directly links into self-acceptance, learning to stay with yourself. Don't vacate yourself. Don't rush outside of yourself to make things better or to make people feel okay. You've got to stay with yourself. You know, it might be that you're just that a lot of the narratives that you'll be listening to in your head, some of you are carrying internalized homophobia and you might not even know it. It can come up in shame. It can come up in hiding. It can come up in that low visibility where you don't want to come out at work, where you don't want to come out in various places or to various people. And some of that is shrouded in shame as well. And I think as we move on, you're going to see how I'm going to get you to work through this. But the first thing that I really want you to take from this is a bit of a ramble, isn't it? Is that self-acceptance is about staying with yourself, even in all the messy parts, even in all the parts that feel uncomfortable. It's not about comfort. Your brain learns by exposure. And the more you stay with yourself, the less you reject yourself. The less you reject yourself, the more you stay with yourself. In the moments that really matter, you're less likely to default to coping mechanisms, because if you've already made peace through staying with yourself, if you've already made peace with the parts that you already know what your flaws are, you already know, you've seen them in full color, you know how they make you feel, nobody can make you feel any worse. And you don't need to keep rejecting yourself for it. You know, it's accepting what is, accept the truth, the reality. That's your starting place. And I think that's a really good place to start. So the next piece of the she mnemonic is a really important piece, because it's to do with your body and it's to do with relearning and reteaching safety in how you hold yourself. So hold your ground. And you might want to write this down, hold your ground. And so this is about holding your ground, is all about again, it feeds into that theme of self-acceptance, and it feeds into that theme of not abandoning yourself. I think the easiest way to think about holding your ground is think of a sunflower. And you're probably thinking, where on earth are you going with this, Leanne? Think of a sunflower, right? They stand really tall. They turn their heads towards the sun to get the light in, don't they? And I want you to think about when you stand really tall. The light that you're letting in by standing tall is how you feel. Because when you stand tall, the way you hold yourself, your posture has a direct dial up to the limbic system in your brain. And it tells your brain that all is well. When you abandon yourself, when you don't accept parts of yourself, you're not holding your ground. What you're doing is the opposite of that, and you're shriveling yourself up, aren't you? You're shriveling yourself up, and that impacts your breath. And when people are scared, when you're scared, you don't have a deep, elongated breath that's calm and is communicating calmness to the rest of your body. Instead, you breathe from here to here, that very shallow breathing. And what happens when you breathe like that is you're signaling danger to the brain. You're signaling that there's a problem. So how you hold your body has a direct impact on the messages that are received by the brain. And if you are signaling that that's shriveled up and you're hiding and your gaze is down and your face is anxious, and you're holding your hands tightly, all the things that we do when we're nervous, when you do that, your brain will issue stress hormones because you're signaling there's danger. Okay, if you think about how we defend ourselves in danger, we cover our main organs up, don't we? And when you do that, what happens is, you start to feel more stressed. You don't feel better like that. You feel like you're bracing and that you're waiting for danger. So I think holding your ground is about how you hold your body. Your body has such a profound impact. It has a massive impact. Your brain-body connection has a massive impact on how you feel. And again, this is all about building capacity. It's about holding yourself, even though there's discomfort there. It's about not running, not leaving yourself behind, not shriveling up. It's about, even when somebody's looking at you, even when you walk into a place, it's about standing tall. It's not about waiting for comfort before you do it. It's about holding your ground. And that's a big part of what I teach my clients as well. I remember when, I think I said in the post earlier, I chopped my hair off very gradually when I was 17, 18, because I couldn't stand it anymore. I'd had enough. And there was something, I was such a shy kid. And by the time I got to 18, I just had enough of just tiptoeing around. And I really felt like I'd reached the point where I didn't really care what people thought. And I told myself that, and it was all good. And then I got my hair cut. And even, in the late 90s, early 2000s, if I went anywhere, a lot of you will remember it, you could spot Lesbian a mile off. That was our uniform. We signaled to other people who we were by how we wore our hair. Thankfully, it doesn't have to be that way in 2026, but it's still significant. I'm very obvious that I'm very aware that I look like a very stereotypical lesbian. I'm okay with that, but there was a time where I wasn't, and there was a time where I would become shy. I'd walk into a bar or a restaurant and I wasn't wearing conventional heels and a dress. I was dressed much like I am now, and the head turns and people looking up and turning around, and how it is when somebody's pointing and then everybody looks and it's a signal to say, look over there and don't make it obvious. We've all experienced that, haven't we? And what I tended to do was hide. I would just try and hide, like Homer Simpson going into the bush, that type of thing. And I wish that I'd known this. I wish that I'd known to do this with my body all those years ago. Just be able to stand tall, just be able to take control of my breath, keep it nice and steady rather than shallow breathing, just having a few clear breaths all the way down into the diaphragm and then slowly back up, and standing squarely and occupying my space and teaching my brain that every time somebody looks, that it's not your signal to hide. And I really want to encourage some of you who are here listening to this, who tend to hide. If somebody looks at you, that you look down. This is about standing your ground, holding your ground, owning your own authority, owning your own body, standing square in it, and not allowing the looks of somebody to have you shrivel up. You want to stand tall like a sunflower. And I thought that was a really good analogy to be able to, gives you a nice visual to think about, doesn't it? And lastly, this is also a really important one, and one that you can build as well. So we got self-acceptance and we got hold your ground. And the last part of the she mnemonic is expression and environment. Now, why is this important? Well, I think confidence isn't about no anxiety. Confidence is about holding your ground, even though there's anxiety, and learning to do that, because that's what builds your internal security system. And that's what I'm encouraging you to build here, is that inner scaffolding, that you know what to do when times get tough. You know what to do when your back's up against the wall. And so I think part of this is about learning to be more yourself in the right environment. Okay, so expression and environment. And to give you an example, I remember when I left for university and I went all the way to Cheltenham, and the first thing I did was join the women's hockey team. And before I knew it, I was surrounded by more gay women than you could shake a stick at. And it was brilliant. And I found that I went and got a few piercings, and I really started to feel my way into my own sense of who I was by being surrounded by other women. And I was away for a good 8 months, didn't come home. And when I came home for the first time, I went and saw my straight friends from the school that I went to. And I remember we were all in the pub, and they were saying, "Oh my God, Leanne, you look gay." And I said, "Well, I've got something to tell you." And they said, "Well, what is it? Are you pregnant?" You know, that's how clueless they were. But I think that I really felt the difference when I'd moved from being surrounded in that kind of environment where I could fully be myself. I felt able to explore and branch out and stretch out by being surrounded by other women who made me feel safe, made me feel like I belonged, gave me that confidence to try new things and to self-experiment. And it could be, self-expression is really important. I think expression is a real big part of being a lesbian woman. It's about not fitting in. It's about being yourself, and it's about subtleties as well. Not everybody's ready to go out there and completely change their appearance. If you are, excellent, kudos to you, but it can be quite frightening. And I've got to say that I did mine in stages, like what I'm explaining to you. It was very staged. So it might be, that you buy a jacket, you get a piercing, you might get your hair cut a little bit shorter, and then with the view to slowly transition into that, and you get used to it while other people around you get used to it too. If you're worried about comments and things like that, I think, you've got to be sensible as well, and not put yourself in the firing line. It's about you getting comfortable first and foremost, and just easing your way in. If you think about it, I say this to my clients all the time, if you get a pair of Doc Martens, we've all had the experiences of having our feet cut to shreds, but it's about learning to break them in. And I think a period of breaking in is important, and giving yourself that time and that space to experiment in a subtle way, in ways that are meaningful for you. I was forever getting told by my family, my mum, my dad, grow your hair. Why won't you wear a dress? Why can't you wear heels and be a lady? Well, I'm still a lady, not in the traditional sense, but wild horses wouldn't get me in a dress or heels now. Can you imagine? But I'm a lot more comfortable accepting. And I've got to say, and I say this a lot, I actually don't give a shit. And I've got to that stage by doing one of many of the things that I'm sharing with you now. It's about, once again, building that capacity. And I think also being visible with yourself as well. It's really important that you connect to yourself in a proper way. You dress for you. I don't know about you, but for me, I love it when I get my hair cut. I love it when I find a nice blazer. I love it when I get a nice pair of boots, or, that type of thing, because it feels like me. And I think learning to experiment with clothes is an important thing. If you're not ready to go to the whole hog, like I say, just something simple, something subtle, and build it up within yourself. Because I think here's the thing also, your brain needs evidence. It needs evidence that you can dress how you want to dress, that you can present and express yourself how you want to express yourself. Your brain needs that type of evidence. It doesn't need affirmations. Your brain needs physical, tangible, real evidence that you can hold your ground, that you can stand there, that nothing bad happens when you start to be yourself, that nothing bad happens when you hold your ground, when you hold that eye contact a little bit more, and you don't look down, and you begin to express yourself in the right supportive environments. And so that's the last part. Environments are really important. Environments like this, not everybody in this group works with me through therapy. I appreciate that not everybody can afford good therapy, but what I like to do is to provide an environment where you can show up, where you can feel safe to express, to talk about things, to have honest, real conversations, and explore parts of you that you wouldn't normally be able to with your straight friends. I know for me that over the years when I've had breakups and I've had difficulties in romance and love, I honestly felt like I was talking to a brick wall, talking to my straight friends, and they just didn't get it, and they didn't have the same empathy, they didn't have the same understanding, and I felt like I was very much on my own. So, you know, I think having an environment where you can come and you can talk and you can be yourself and you can show up and you can connect, and the great thing is that there's other people all around the world, and that's the most important thing, is having that sense of belonging. Because when you are in the right environment, when you do feel like you have when you have some purpose, when you're acknowledged, when you're seen for who you really are, not who you're performing to be, then that really matters as well. And that goes, you know, if you think about it, this cycle that I've talked you through tonight. So we've got, you know, self-acceptance, learning to value what is, not what if or what might be, or, you know, all of that other narrative that you can get lost in. Learning to accept what is, learning to hold your ground, even recognize it's going to be uncomfortable. Sometimes the journey to being yourself isn't easy, but it's definitely worth it. And you don't have to do it alone. That's the thing, because when you can accept yourself, everything about you, or including all the things that you don't like, when you can hold your ground, even when it's uncomfortable, even when every single part of you wants to run away and hide, and you can be in the right environment, and you can learn to express yourself, and you can rotate that and rinse and repeat, and you can continue to commit to that. Just those three things: self-acceptance, holding your ground, and being in the right environments, and practicing expression in how you want to be and how you want to show up. I think that could be potentially life-changing for some of you who are still battling, still trying to orientate yourself around other people's opinions, still shrinking when you get a look or a question, still fighting yourself, you know, those last few thoughts that you have before you go asleep or turn off your light, and you lie there awake worrying and fretting and hating on yourself when you don't need to. It's just about just slowing things down and keeping things nice and simple. So this is a bit longer than what I would normally do, but I really do hope that you find it helpful. So this is confidence in visibility, in being more yourself, with the she mnemonic, raw, unfiltered. I might have rambled on a bit, but I don't care. I know that this will really land with the people that need to hear it. And if you enjoyed this and you have any comments, you want to ask me any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, by the way. So just press comment. It's not press comment, is it? Just type away your comment underneath this video that I'm going to post in, and I'll catch up with you in the week. So really hope this helps. God, I'm getting tired because it's getting late, and I'll catch up with you all soon. All right, take care. Bye for now.